Ruth Wilson, you play Allison on Showtime's The Affair, which is the story of an extramarital affair between your character and Dominic West, and it's told from their two different points of view. Is that a bit like playing two entirely different people?
It is a bit, yeah. I mean, that was partly why I was intrigued by the job. I got to play two different versions of this character, and actually three different versions for the present day as well. And it did feel they felt like quite different people at some point, throughout it. Um, and I decided to approach it with that in mind, really. Certainly from her point of view, she's kind of consumed by grief. So, in my version, that's the prism with which I acted, in a way. And then with his version, he doesn't find out about the grief until episode 4. So I decided that it was going to be Alison without that grief, in a way. What he sees is an impression of this slightly reckless and provocative woman and sexy woman, and he doesn't know anything about the grief. So I wasn't going to play it, basically. So it was really interesting as an exercise, acting exercise, and quite hard work, but really satisfying.
Now, it's told from their two different points of view, and it's sort of like two shows in one, just because in each episode, we see one side of the story for half of the episode, and then we switch to the other side of the story. How is it divided up when filming? Are you constantly going back and forth between which Allison you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, it's often divided by location. So the scenes that play out in the lobster roll, for example, will all be done on one day. So you'll do both versions. So often we start off with Alison's version, and then we'll both have to go off and get changed and come back and set up the same scene virtually, but in different costumes and playing different versions. Um, so that's how it usually worked out. It was more about location than it was about linear storytelling.
It's interesting to see the scenes where you and Dominic West are together, because we'll get sort of two versions of the same scene with like slightly different dialogue, slightly different location. Is it difficult to sort of differentiate those, or are you looking very specifically for all right, what's the difference between my version and his version in terms of how you're characterizing it?
I think it's quite obvious in the script. I think the script, because obviously you see a lot more from one particular version of events, it puts a completely different spin on the whole scene anyway. So there's not a great deal of work that necessarily we have to do to really mine that as actors. I mean, it's there on the page, but in things like physicality, I would change and help with the costumes. Also, it's about intention. I mean, some of the lines are identical, but it's just perhaps where that character's come from and what they're wanting the other person to do in that scene. It's slightly, you spin it slightly differently. So yeah, they weren't. I think the writing does lend itself to enable us to sort of do those different versions of characters. It wasn't like we had and the scenes aren't really that identical. If you watch them, they're quite different. So that helped.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's sort of a present day element of the show. Also, there's a crime involved, and there's a detective interviewing both of your characters. So that's basically three versions of the role. Is that is it sort of challenging to sort of find a center for this character when it's sort of like a moving target like that?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think that as the show went on, we found that the two sides start to mould a bit more. Just because those characters are starting to be known by each other, so they become more familiar to each other. They're not such I don't know, they sort of get to know them in a three-dimensional way. So by episode 4, really, and 5, Noah and Alison have a very similar version of each other in some respects. But 6, what we saw last night, again, he sees another side to her. He sees something else. So suddenly she seems like a kind of alien, or she seems like a different person. So every episode keeps manipulating that or changing that. It's about people's perception and about how you view someone and how that perception changes accordingly to what you know about them. So that happens throughout the whole series. And that's what's exciting about it. As an actor, you get to play all those different versions and keep spinning those plates. But it is quite hard to find a single line. You just hope that the whole, the three parts, the present day and the two versions, they sort of connect up to one whole in some ways. I think there's truth in all of them. Um, and so somewhere in the middle there's the real Alison, and somewhere in the middle there's the real Noah.
Now, it's possible that both of these characters, as you mentioned, the truth might be somewhere in the middle because they both have different versions of events, and we see them being interrogated. So maybe one or both of them is also lying about certain events. But since you're playing Allison, do you find yourself ever biased towards her side of the story? You start to think maybe, all right, this is closer to the truth.
Always. I think I'm right. So, yeah, I think you have to, in some ways you have to be, but also it's the version that gives you the most truth in a way as an actor and as a character, because you're able to pad out your journey and your history and the relationships you have with all the, the husband, Joshua Jackson's part, but all the family members as well. So you get more history and you get more sense of a character in my version, in a way. In his version, it always feels a little bit slightly like an impression, or it's not two-dimensional as such, but there is sort of an impression of a character that he's looking at. So it never feels completely whole, necessarily. But my version, yeah, feels a complete version of that character. So yes, I think she's telling the truth.
Another very important aspect of the show is its setting. It takes place in Montauk on Long Island, and that influences so much of the story. Is it filmed on location there?
No, I think we did about 6 weeks in Montauk. The rest was done in Oyster Bay, Glen Cove, a studio in Greenpoint. We couldn't afford. I think it's quite expensive to shoot there throughout the summer, and also there's so many sort of tourists there during the summer that it's quite hard to get those locations. So no, we decided we spent out 6 weeks, but every time we went back, it was glorious. It's such a beautiful place, and the atmosphere instantly, you feel more relaxed, and everyone's much calmer on set. Something about being by the sea, I think, probably. But it's a great place, and I got to know it really well.
It's interesting because on the show there's this distinction between the Montauk residents and the summer people who come vacation there. And your character, Allison, is a resident, but you coming into Montauk as an actor to film the show, did you feel like one of the summer people?
A little bit, yeah. You feel a bit like a tourist, and um, you sort of don't know it as well as they do. And that's the job of the actor, I suppose. I went out there when we filmed the pilot, which was last October. I went and spent a week there prior to filming. And by that time, all the summer people had left. So I was sort of meeting locals and trying to sort of get underneath the local community and the local haunts and bars that everyone goes to. But it's so different during the summer. It's heaving. It's full of people. And during this month now, it would be dead. It would be, it's a ghost town. Just the locals. So there's a real loyalty from the locals. There's a real passion about their town. And they love the tourists, but there is a sort of, I don't know, it's quite a difficult situation sometimes, I suppose. They're feeding this industry which doesn't always align with what they are like during other months, if you see what I mean. So, but I loved it. I think it's a great place, and yeah, I felt a little bit like an outsider, and I'm not sure they were completely happy with us filming there. But I would love to get to know it more. And I got to know bits of it, and got to know some locals, which was good.
It was recently announced that The Affair has been renewed for a second season. Do you know when you go back into production?
Not yet, not yet. If it's the same, it will be May, but it might move because of that very reason that we shooting over the summer in Montauk is difficult. But I've got no idea. No, don't know yet.
That'll be, I believe, another 10 episodes for the show, and the first season is also 10 episodes. Have you ever had a chance to play a single role for that long, stretch of period of time?
No,
Just to,
no. In Britain, we don't tend to do long-running TV series. I've done Luther, which I think in all was about 10 episodes. So that's as much as I've done before, and it's quite exciting in a way. You don't know where they're going to take it, and your character goes. it allows your character to play all different levels. I mean, what I did in this series, you know, every different facet of a personality and of a character I've got to play. So in that way, it's really exciting. I mean, it's incredibly demanding, but they can push the character any way they want, really. And with that amount of time to spend on the narrative, you get to explore all those different areas and those different facets of one character. So it's exciting in that way.
There must also be that sort of a sense of uncertainty, unlike like a film where you're playing a very specific character that has a beginning, middle, and end, or play, or short run series. There's sort of a sense that you as the actor are still sort of getting to know the character. You don't know the whole story yet.
Yeah, I found that quite hard because like you said, I usually come from doing plays or films, or even the TV series back home tend to have the whole script written out for you. So you can pitch and decide what your journey is. In this, it's being written as it goes. So you're receiving scripts and you're performing them the following week. But you trust the writing, you trust the showrunner's idea of the show and what they want for it. And in a way, it's quite liberating because you just have to be very instinctive and you have to run with what you're given and make it as truthful as possible. So in that way, it was very different to what I've done before and quite scary, but very liberating.
You've had a very varied experience when it comes to acting on TV. Your best known roles before The Affair were probably as Jane Eyre in the 2006 miniseries, and as you mentioned on Luther, where you played the psychopathic Alice Morgan. What kind of effect did those roles have on your career? They seem to be very large breakout roles.
Yeah, Jane Eyre was my second job that I ever got. So I was 6 months out of drama school and I got that, and it was a huge boost for my career. It was BBC One, period drama. It was the perfect entry onto the scene. And I got Golden Globe nominated for it. It was the year that the Golden Globes were cancelled, which was a real shame. It was the writer's strike. So I had to watch it on the news, watch the results on the news, which was a bit disappointing. But it was great. Got BAFTA nominated, Golden Globe nominated, and then that helped in the UK a lot in building my career and working with the BBC. And then Luther came along a few years later, and I remember I'd seen The Wire, and I loved Idris Elba, and I said to myself, if I ever got to work with Idris, that'd be a dream come true. I won't need to do anything else. And within a year, I got offered Luther to play Alice. So I was like, yes, sign me up. And that was great. And I don't think we realised what kind of impact that would have necessarily. I thought it was a fun show, and I thought the character was really fun. I knew I'd have a lot of fun playing that role. She was kind of like Hannibal Lecter stroke the Catwoman. I kind of knew there was something that I would have a lot of fun doing. But the fan base was huge, and the response we got was so good that we didn't necessarily expect to do a second season, but because it's such a fan base, it went on, and it's going on, and we might do another one. So I think it's I love playing her, and it's been great out here in the US. Got huge fan base out here. So they've both done enormous things for me in different countries and on different scales, but they've opened up my fan base to huge different, multi-group of people all across the world. It's great.
You mentioned how Jane Eyre did earn you a BAFTA nomination and a Golden Globe nomination, even though you didn't get to go to a Golden Globe show because that was the year of the writer's strike. What was it like being swept up in that award scene so early in your career?
It was really exciting. I mean, I didn't know anything different, so I was blown away and thrilled and a bit naive and green about it all, but probably the best way to be about those events. Even though the Golden Globes were cancelled, I still went out to LA because I thought, just in case they decide to put them on. And it was funny. LA was empty because everyone had decided to leave. All Americans had thought, we're getting out of town because it's not on. And the only people left were Brits who had been nominated. So there was all the Atonement lot, like James McAvoy and Keira Knightley, all just looking for a party, basically, and some way of celebrating. Um, so I don't know. It was wonderful in a way. I was very new to it, and I was really thrilled and blown away that people had recognised me, both at home and abroad. So it was exciting to be part of.
You're about to make your Broadway debut in the play Constellations, starting in a few weeks. I think goes into previews next month, and then premieres in January. But you've already won a couple of Olivier Awards for your theater work in London. Does it work? Does it feel different going into your first Broadway show compared to the stage work you did in England? Does it feel like there's less pressure or more pressure?
Um, it doesn't feel that different at the moment. I mean, we'll wait until it goes on, but they've been so good here, and the team behind Constellations originate from London or from England. So it's from the Royal Court, and so the director's English, the set designer's English, the writer's English. We're all going to be doing it in English, so it feels quite Anglo-Saxon centric at the moment. But I think what's so exciting about Broadway, I've always wanted to do Broadway. It's such a thrill, and there's such an amazing community. We've got such great shows on at the moment. There's The River with Hugh Jackman, and Elephant Man with Bradley Cooper, and Delicate Balance with Glenn Close. There's so many great shows on, and to be part of that community and part of that world is a real honour, actually. And to be part of MTC, which is a wonderful company, non-for-profit theatre, and it's quite small and intimate. So I don't know yet. I think the rehearsal process has felt quite the same. But once we get on its feet and the world of Broadway is around the magic of Broadway, I think it might feel quite different in some ways.
Yeah, you mentioned all these other interesting and wide variety of shows currently running on Broadway. Have you had a chance to take any of those in, or have you just been so laser focused on this one play that you're doing?
No, I'm going to see some. I've got a cold, as you might hear. I've got a blocked up nose, so I was going to go and see The River last night, but I was too ill, so I'm going to try and see that. I'm seeing something called Punk Rock tonight, which is by Simon Stevens, who's an English playwright, and it's off Broadway, so I'm going to see that tonight. I'm hoping to see Katori Hall's new play as well, which is off Broadway. Can't remember where it's on at. So no, I'm trying to see as much as I can, because of course once I open, I can't see anything. So I'm trying to stack up all my evenings with theatre plays. Yeah.
What made you decide to take on a Broadway show? At this point, was it just the right opportunity at the right time, or were you specifically looking for maybe a Broadway show to break into?
I think part of it is I love theatre, and I always need to go back to it. I always feel I get a bit antsy when I haven't done theatre for long. And I just had done Showtime, The Affair, with a camera in your face for 5 months, like this close. So I wanted to be free, physically free on a stage for a while. And, this opportunity came up, and I'd seen the play in London. I loved it. It's an amazing play. And it's Nick Payne, who's one of our best playwrights. And I just thought, what better way to have your Broadway debut than do a play that you love and you think you could do something with. But it's also hugely challenging, and it's exactly the right moment. It's what I needed at this time, I think, in my headspace and my heart. Get on the stage.
Well, I want to wish you the best of luck with the play and with the upcoming season of The Affair. That films probably next year, and the Golden Globes are coming up next month. The nominations will be out, and so maybe if the Affair is recognized, you'll actually get to go to the party this time.
So I'll hope I'll get back there one day. It'd be lovely. Thank you. Lovely.
Well, good luck with that, and maybe we'll see you at the Tonys next year also, and just more and more and more as the years go on.
Fingers crossed.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye.